Right, Force with Friends is back. We are talking today, probably strictly conjecture, but we're going to talk the possibility of Tom Hiddleston as a young Palpatine. But before we get into that, you can see we have a new friend here on Force with Friends. So this is JT Lovecraft. He's stepping in for Kevin today, and I'm sure you'll see him around some more on the channel as Kevin's away or I'm away. We can figure that out. But JT, thanks so much for hopping on today.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, tell Kevin I got his money, and I'll double it.
It
but
wouldn't take much. I'll tell you that. Now
but
I will say, shout out to Kevin. He got me a birthday present. My birthday is not near, but we live in different states. We don't see each other often. So he got me this Thrawn shirt from Heroes and Villains, which is like
nice.
super cool. So had to wear that in honor of Kevin. I saw him this past weekend. But JT, tell the audience a little bit about your channel before we get into everything else.
All right, yeah. So my name online, you might see me floating around on other people's podcasts and videos and stuff like that. I'm kind of like a ghost in the community, but I'll take any excuse to nerd out and talk Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, you name it, with fellow-minded, awesome people. But my main platform is Instagram. That's where I do the most. I've taken kind of a hiatus as of recently, and then I also have a TikTok that I don't really use that I probably should because man, people real quick on there. And my YouTube. I only got 2 videos on my YouTube, so I mean, it's nothing to go out of your way to see. But if you want to see like the behind the scenes kind of like videos or whatever that I don't normally post on my Instagram, go there. Everything I do is pretty much an archive and what I like. But if you like it too, that's awesome. That's what means a lot. Yeah.
And you've got like some really cool saber spinning. Like you can do all of this stuff on there. You've got some pretty cool cosplay stuff. Like definitely go give JT a follow on socials. I put his Instagram and YouTube down below. So before we go any further, definitely check that description and click those. Go give JT a sub and a follow. It's pretty good stuff. You will not be disappointed. And JT knows a lot about like the comics and stuff too. So I don't know if you have any like cosplay or comic stuff you wanted to like show off before we got going.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm starting to get into like the official kind of cosplay route. As you mentioned, I do a lot of lightsaber stuff. It just started off as pretty much how everyone started off, just spinning the plastic lightsabers around. But as the technology gets better and better, people can incorporate some pretty cool martial arts stuff in there. And I'm no
Yeah.
expert, so if it looks cool, I'm fooling you good, right? But no, the cosplay route. I'm yet to debut this, but it would be this character. I am
Oh,
nearly completely done with the Starkiller Hoth
yeah.
costume from the Force Unleashed video game, and
Yeah.
my close friends know that this is a big one for me, especially growing up and playing the games and all. But yeah, stay tuned for that because I got some juicy bits that probably not a lot of other Starkiller cosplayers have included in their outfits. So we'll see.
Be
Or
looking
you'll see.
forward to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited. And that's it's but yeah, that's what's going on. That's
No,
what's new.
Star Killer's iconic too. Like that's quite the cosplay to pull off, especially when why am I blanking on his name? Sam Witwer is at so many cons. Like, is there a chance he's going to see this cosplay?
Dude, I'm yet to meet him. That's like one of my top celebrity meets. I went to Celebration in London. I went to a few cons and got some of my idols and heroes, but man, just the white whales that keep slipping through my fingers, man. Like Ray Park and Sam Witwer. Maul's the guy, right? So I got yes, I will probably if he gets announced anywhere near me, or if the clouds just happen to align and he's going to one that I'm going to, you can count
Yeah,
on me wearing the suit. So
he would be so cool. Like just talking through him too, the way he is. I
oh
mean, I've
man.
never met him, but just heard stories from people that have. And you see all of his clips. Like, as far as the Star Wars actors go, I think he's one of the good ones for sure.
Oh yeah, he's like he's just as much of a fan as any of the
Yeah,
other sweaty fans for Star Wars are. I mean, he's
yeah.
just like you said. Like I've heard a lot of stories about him giving adequate time to
Mhm.
people going up to meet him and signing stuff. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that for sure. So
Yeah. So everyone, be on the lookout for that cosplay from JT. Now, let's go ahead and let's take a look. Now this article, it's from the direct. It's a slow time for Star Wars for another week or two. Okay, so bear with us. So in these little dry spells that we have, there's just a lot of, I don't want to say it's clickbait, but there's a lot of stuff out there just to kind of get you thinking. So this article showed up on the direct this week, and I thought it was pretty cool. So this is going to be Tom Hiddleston, the potential for Tom Hiddleston to be a young Palpatine. So again, I'll link this article down below. It's pretty fun. Like it talks about the latest. This is very much so fan talk more so than a rumor. But Tom Hiddleston playing Palpatine in a Star Wars spinoff. Uh, Controversy about Acolyte, yada yada yada. But check out that right there. I mean,
dude,
that
yes.
I'm pretty sure that's AI right there. But check that out. I mean, I don't know about the hair. They might have to change that around because that's essentially Loki. But
Yeah,
man, if that's the poster they put out, people would be all over this.
dude, I coming from reading the Plagueis novel or even listening to the
Yeah,
audiobook, just like listening to the narrator say things in the book like Palpatine killing his father. Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert for
right.
Plagueis, by the way. Get
He's
out of here!
spoiler. Spoiler. He's a
Get
bad
out of
guy.
here!
We're
Yeah,
we're
but
going to talk a lot about Plagueis, by the way. So go ahead and if you haven't read that, maybe drop off, read it, and come join us again.
yeah, but I mean, man, dude, Loki's also one of those divisive characters where he's kind of in the middle ground, where he's a bad guy, but for the very reason that he is selfish. And I think that fits Sheev Palpatine perfectly because he's a bad guy. Sure, he's the bad guy, but man, he has that kind of coercion where he can definitely fool you about being a good guy. So
Yeah,
like when he's in the book and he kills his dad and he's finally experiencing the powers of the dark side for the first time, and um, how he's just able to coerce people through the way he talks, even in the movies, the
yeah,
Lucas movies 1 through 6. The prequels highlight that very well. Um, so man, Tom Hiddleston being Palpatine, man, that is see, that's one of the few fan castings that I
would
do
work.
not mind. Yeah, I have a thing against celebrities that are already in pre-existing projects that
Mhm.
just kind of simmer their way into Star Wars. I know a lot of people had a lot of grievances with Lizzo and Jack Black in The Mandalorian, and me too,
Yeah,
kind of like it just felt like a whatever kind of celebrity cameo. I mean, they did their job, but it's nothing like the idea of maybe someone like Benedict Cumberbatch or Michael Fassbender playing Thrawn, right? I mean, the fan
right.
castings
Yeah,
make sense because the people that are doing that have a sense of what the actor's character is to the character they're going to be playing, right? So they can see elements in that, and I see a lot of Tom Hiddleston actually in Palpatine. So yes,
yeah.
that's a green light for me.
That's a good point too on fan casting. Like, if you want to look at the Ahsoka series, it's like 50% fan cast. Like, you've got Rosario Dawson popping in there. You've got Amon Esfandi with Ezra. Like, those were fan cast type things, and it worked out perfectly, I think, for those two characters. So yeah, I mean, not that we as fans should be the people that are writing the stories, but we also aren't clueless. Like if
Oh
we kind
yeah,
of pick up on who might be good for something, maybe listen to the fans every now and then. And it's worked for those two. And I think kind of like what you said, Tom Hiddleston, just the way he does Loki, it's almost as if he might have been born to be Palpatine as well.
yeah. I mean, even in Loki season 1. So when you see him, I forget the name of the place. If it's Loki Land, I don't even know. I can't remember. It's been a while. I only seen the thing one time through,
Yeah.
but it's after he gets pruned and he gets sent to the world where the
At the
Goliath.
end of it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got the Loki that shows up with the other Loki, and he's like standing there. And
Yeah.
he's like, "I found you, and now what?" Right? It's like
Yep.
it's kind of evil there.
They got like the alligator Loki and,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
all that.
yeah. But no, you're exactly right on that. Where the fan casting doesn't necessarily mean writing the story, but listening to fans definitely helps playing out with what people want to see. Because even though Rosario Dawson being casted as Ahsoka, a lot of people liked it for the most part. Some people didn't like it, but then all of a sudden Hayden makes a return in Ahsoka wearing
Yeah,
Clone Wars armor. I mean,
yeah,
people already have a pre-established love with that. Um,
yep.
and then you add the fan casted what people want on top of that. It's a recipe for good luck, right? So,
Agree.
there's not a whole lot of wiggle room that can go wrong there, and unless it's a probably a story writing issue, what seems to be something that slips through. Besides Star Wars nowadays, and in a lot of different franchises, there's a lot of story writing issues that people are complaining about, and I think it's justified for them to complain about. But
Oh,
that's a different
I'm with
topic.
you. Star Wars, I suppose Marvel too. It's almost like the hits are kind of sporadic. It's more misses story because it's like you just slap it up there and you expect it to make money or draw subs, and after so long, it takes a hit. That's probably a different
Yeah.
story for a different day, but like I agree. If you get a halfway competent story, you get actors in there that like will obviously be good at it. It's it should almost be like fail proof at this point with
Yeah.
like IPs like Star Wars, Marvel, things like that. But it appears that the otherwise is being proven. That's for
Yeah.
sure. And
And by
another
the way,
thing, like
this is
yeah,
from Will and me that are not experts in cinema, right? We're just fans that want
yes,
to see cool stuff, right? So
yes. Yes, that is for sure. Now, I will say too on the Tom Hiddleston thing, not that like kind of piggybacking off that, Star Wars is larger than any one person, any one actor, actress, story, whatever you want to say. It's bigger than that. It's.
yeah,
I mean, George Lucas has made a behemoth of a franchise, and so when you look at casting, you don't necessarily have to go with like the wow factor. And I think the original trilogy proves that. The prequel trilogy proves that. I would even say the sequel trilogy. You've got Adam Driver and Oscar Isaac were, especially Adam Driver and Oscar
yeah,
Isaac, maybe a smaller level, kind of well known. And everybody else outside of the original Star Wars people, like Daisy Ridley and John Boyega, that was like their first big thing. So, like, really big thing. And
yeah.
so I think you don't need a Tom Hiddleston to like draw people into Star Wars per se. But I was at the last day of MegaCon last year, and it was the day that Tom Hiddleston was there doing a panel. And there were like 7,000 Lokis walking around MegaCon. And then like there were a few like Star Wars people and then anime people like me, and I was Star Wars people. There was anime people, and it was just like Loki everywhere. Not not to say that you do things like that just because he's got like a cult following, but man, that Orange County Convention Center was full of Loki. Man, woman, kids, everybody was Loki that day. And so I don't think it would be a bad idea to take like the one beloved Marvel character from this Disney Plus era and bring him into Star Wars as well.
Yeah,
Because Marvel's had a rough go around.
yeah, that's in the roots of what we're kind of saying here, where it's not necessarily the fan casting needs to happen. It's just what people would like to see. If you look at Star Wars back in the day, you know, in the Lucas era, they were picking nobodies. They were picking nobodies on purpose. And eventually, when those actors go into different gigs, they will always be recognized as that. I mean, Mark
Yeah.
Hamill,
Yeah.
to everybody is Luke Skywalker. I don't care where you come from, even if you don't even know what Star Wars is. Mark Hamill's Luke Skywalker. He does a
Yeah.
fantastic Joker. I mean, I loved him in The Kingsman, although his role was very small in that. He's in so many different
Right.
other things, but he is always Luke Skywalker. Um,
Yep.
and I agree with you. You know, Adam Driver, he was one of the selling points of the sequels for me. I didn't really care for the sequels all too much, but he was a very strong character to kind of dig into the mentality of that, which I very much appreciated. And forgive me for not seeing Stranger Things because I've not seen that show. I know a lot of people told
Yeah.
me it was good, and I got to get into it. But there's a character with a mullet, and
Yes.
he wears a denim jacket, and man, as
Yep.
soon as one of the
Eddie
seasons of that
Munson.
show, yeah, I think that's his
Yep.
name. Yeah, one of the seasons of the show came out for that, and there were so many people dressed up as that guy at a convention. I'm like, I've not seen it, but look at how many passionate people are
Yeah.
after it. That's just a cool thing, right? That's a cool camaraderie. So
Yep. For sure. Also, I will second Stranger Things is pretty good. Now, this is not Stranger Things podcast. Season one is like S tier for me. Uh, season three is way up there. Season four was way up there for me until like the very end. It took a nosedive. Season two is kind of meh for me, just personally. But you
Okay.
should definitely watch it at some point. But it'll be finished in a year. You can sit and watch it all and not have to wait on it.
That'll
So
be
that
great.
maybe that's what I would do. Yeah, if I were you, wait and binge it.
That would be great. Yeah, I don't want to get wrapped up in having to wait, a long time and then forget about the characters. But who knows?
Yes.
Maybe if I do start early, I'll remember. I don't know. But a lot of people have been telling me it's good, and not a lot of people tell me it's bad. So I have good hopes for that.
It's
Getting
good
into
stuff.
that show. Yeah.
Yeah, you would not be disappointed. Now, as far as this story, so let's say the article itself, I didn't scroll through the whole thing. You can read it. Like I'm not going to be to read the PowerPoint for you.
Yeah.
But it says that the premise is going to be Palpatine early in his political career. So his rise to power on Naboo, but then it would also include tidbits, obviously, of his training, his secretive training. And we do get that in great detail in the Plagueis novel. That's my favorite Star Wars book to this point. I did the
Yeah.
audio book, what you had mentioned, and I think first I'm not going to read any, so I'm going to have to listen. And so I recommend doing the audio book, but like it wouldn't even have to completely follow the Plagueis novel, but I think it's probably not a bad place to start either.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for the audiobooks. I like you mentioned at the beginning, I'm a big comic book guy. So
Yeah,
I'm all for the eye candy, seeing the
yeah,
explosions. If I look at too much text in a book too long, it's like some sort of ADHD kicks in. I'm like, man, I'm just getting bored. And then you get in the
yep,
audiobook and they're playing the actual like licensed Star Wars music. I'm like, this is the way
yes,
to go. And it's just a
yep,
whole different atmosphere to that. But yeah, I'm with you. I wouldn't mind if the Palpatine story actually took um, heavy notes from the Plagueis book. I think that would be very smart because it is overwhelmingly positive. How many Star Wars fans also say that their favorite EU book is Plagueis?
yep,
And with the Acolyte coming out and showing that cameo, the
yeah.
influx of so many people that got upset of just seeing the little cameo. I mean, that was cool, but you can't just show Plagueis. You can't show the Master of Sidious and do that.
Just
Come
leave
on,
it.
man. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I understand their frustration. It goes both ways, right? Um, but no, man, yeah, dude. But there's so many juicy things in Plagueis that add to the character of Palpatine. Um, I think that would be a very smart thing to do. Honestly, yeah, I agree.
one might even say I joke with this with Kevin. This is more of a tongue-in-cheek thing. But with the advent of the sequel trilogy, they kind of joke around like, "Oh, it's the Skywalker saga," but really, it's the Palpatine saga, right? Like if you look at it all, because the spoiler alert, Rey is a Palpatine, and Palpatine is somehow returns. So like it's funny where it's like, "Oh, Skywalker saga," but it's the Palpatines that kind of hold it all together. And
Yeah,
so I kind of joke around that, like, "Hey, this is the Palpatine saga." So if you're going to look at it from that mindset, why would you not give us a little bit of an origin story? Take us back to Naboo. I do like that it starts like with his political career. That idea, we can watch him fall into the dark side, or whatever. But man, it's almost understood. Like he's there. He's
yeah,
there. I don't necessarily need him having like a temper tantrum with his parents or whatever,
yeah,
which is what was in the novel. But like, man, start him out as a young senator or something like that. It doesn't have to be a senator, but just kind of rising up through the ranks. However you want to get there. Like follow the Plagueis novel if you want, but take some liberty. Just use the framework and watch him like coerce people. Watch him do things that seem good, knowing that he's playing like a 30, 40 year long game. I mean, how
yeah.
interesting would that be?
Yeah, I mean, just what you said. I think movies 1 through 6, especially. I mean, before the sequels even came out, it was very
Yeah,
clear that the Skywalker, title for the movies 1 through 6 was the tragedy of Darth Vader. It was the fall
yeah,
of a friend turned bad guy, redeemed into good guy. right? But none of that would have been possible if there wasn't an ultimate bad guy controlling them.
Yep.
Palpatine is the root of that issue. Um, and I just think I'll relate it to something off the top of my head, just because I'm thinking about it as an example. But like, kind of like the story of Jesus in the Bible, how
Right.
he was a carpenter growing up, but it's just a lot of like, we don't know what those happened in those years because he was
Right.
just
Yeah.
like a normal guy, right?
Yep.
So it's probably a lot of like boring stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And
Mundane.
yeah, and just average
Yeah.
guy stuff. So I assume with the direction of Palpatine in Plagueis, how it basically was Plagueis found this kid at school, right? That was just
Yep.
powerful in the dark side. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna, yeah, he's the one. I heard words, or I'm Hugo Damask. I'm not even fully revealed Sith, but
Right. Yeah.
this is the way to go. And yeah, we don't need to see Palpatine going to school. It's a lot of boring stuff because the action doesn't start until he's under the watch of Darth Plagueis.
Yeah.
So that would be a smart thing to start early senatorship. You could see his seeds being planted for later on. Yeah.
Also, like this is completely aside from Palpatine, but like who would not sign up to see Naboo on screen too? Especially if they did like some on-set recording or filming. I know that they save a lot of money using the Void. I think the Void is it the Void? The Void is
Uh,
the
the
that they did
volume.
at Disney Springs. The
Yeah,
Void is a
volume.
ride that doesn't exist anymore. The volume is the little semicircle that they film
Yeah.
in. It saves them a lot of money, but I do think going it's in Spain, right? Is that where it is, or is it in Italy?
I don't have the answer to that.
Somewhere over there.
Yeah.
Some I'm sure, yeah, someone knows. I could easily Google it, but we're not going to do that. So like, give us some on-set, like on location filming. It would just give all the little nostalgia things that you want out of Star Wars, and it wouldn't have to be like this is a stupid term, but it wouldn't have to be fan service, right? Like it's actually serving a plot point. It's not like in The Mandalorian where we go back to Tatooine every 3 episodes. Like this is actually like
Yeah.
while we're there. And so I think that's a plus. Hiddleston's a plus. Palpatine's story is a plus. Throw some Plagueis in there. That's a plus. Like, even though this article is not a legitimate rumor, odds are, like, it would just make so much sense for this not to happen at some point. Like, it's
Yeah.
almost too good to be true.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like the Clone Wars example in Ahsoka. Like, it was bound we would see Hayden reprise his role into something like that.
Yep.
Like, it's too iconic to pass up. And
Yeah.
was your question, where is the volume located, or where were the shots of Naboo located?
Where were the shots of Naboo?
Oh,
The
well then,
volume is in somewhere. I don't know,
yeah,
like somewhere in
I
the studios.
yeah, I was gonna say because I don't know where the volume is, but yeah, the Naboo shots. I know Theed Palace was used in Caserta Palace in Italy. That's when the
Okay, Italy. Yep,
droids
Lake
the
Como.
droids are, yeah. Lake Como is
Sparta.
the wedding island.
Yep.
I think they used shots of like the Vatican for when Palpatine or
Okay.
Palpatine and Padme and Anakin are walking on their
Yeah.
royal date or whatever on that big like semicircle brick walkway or something like that. Yeah, so it's a bunch of places in Europe. Yeah, but dude, you're totally right. There's something about the charm of the prequels with the creation of all these fancy looking planets. I mean,
Yeah.
Mustafar, Megiddo, Felucia, Camino. I mean, there's so much different variety. And just using on-site real life places, people want to come visit these places because Star Wars. You know,
Yeah.
when I was in London, I'm not a crazy fan of Andor. I liked Andor season 1. I can't wait for season
Yeah.
2. But my friend Nick over in London, he is a mega fan of Andor. After we
Yeah.
went to Celebration, we all like our little posse. We were in an Airbnb, and he's like, "Okay, we're going to Coruscant." I'm like, what? He's like, "I'm gonna take you guys to the screen use shots they used to film Andor," and I'm like, "Oh,
So cool.
they did it right here in London. Awesome, let's go." So
Yeah.
we just had like a day trip where we had lunch and then we were walking to the ISB headquarters. We were walking to
Yeah.
where the lady was walking through the bridge area where she's like feared of being watched, and I forget her name. But yeah, that's all at the end of my highlights thing on my page on Instagram. You can see I like
Yeah.
screenshotted the place that we were standing to recreate it and the show picture right now. So I mean, that's just cool. And we were doing it with
Yeah.
our buddies, right? We're visiting Star Wars stuff with our buddies. That's like that's an awesome feeling. And the charm of Star Wars, man, with the on-site locations, Mustafar, even if you can't visit it, they used real shots of a volcano. I mean, that's cool, right?
Yeah,
So yeah,
it's like the best CGI they did in the prequels, probably.
yeah, yeah,
Now, I will say this too, as far as like this the story goes, for this Palpatine thing, it could be like multiple seasons. I mean, you could I mean, politics in real life in Star Wars, whatever, it's a thing that can just drag on. Right?
yeah,
So, like, you could have it going on for all these different little conflicts, drama things. I would assume this would be a drama series. This would probably not be much of an action series. So,
yeah,
like, you could really you could have an arc on like, oh, as boring as it sounds, like some kind of trade thing, kind of like what we're getting that's kicking off the prequels. You can have with Plagueis being in the banking, right? Like that was his sector was
yeah,
in the banking. So maybe do some stuff like that. Give us some backstory on getting the clone army going. Like there's so much you could do leading up to episode
yeah.
one and still give the prequels plenty of breathing room, like not getting too close to it. I think that would be a great way to go about it.
Yeah, there's many tools that can be used. Even just having a shot where I forget the name of the place on Coruscant, but it's like their hideaway building. It's where Dooku meets
Oh yeah,
Palpatine. But
yep,
even just having a shot in the show of him
yeah,
meeting up with Dooku, I'm like, oh, freaking like Dooku cameo,
yeah,
awesome, right? And Plagueis does it best, where it does actually have those long drawn out moments, but the, some of the action scenes that do happen in that book sound pretty awesome. I mean, he like Plagueis sneakily like electrocutes a senator's hand. I mean, we can do
yep,
something like that with Palpatine, where he is like taking out
yeah.
senators. Like my friend Charlie, he's big into the Palpatine. He's a good guy. It's like a running joke, right? Like they won't see it coming.
Misunderstood.
Yeah, he's a misunderstood guy. People like him, and then all of a sudden, a senator walks into the big red Senate room, but the doors closed behind him, and he's like, "Yep, you're done." Walked into your death chamber. But no, yeah, that I wouldn't even mind if it was like something like what they're planning on doing with Andor season 2 when it comes out, where maybe Palpatine's Senate escapades, building up the trust and planting the seeds with the other senators, is handled in maybe an episode is 3 years, or maybe two
Yeah,
episodes does a time jump, or you can even relate it to maybe one of the episodes is Palpatine sending Maul to do one of his early uh,
oh
assassinations.
yeah.
Dude, people want Maul to come back to camera so bad. I do.
Talk about like a,
You know?
a triple threat. If you got
Yeah.
Plagueis, Maul, and Palpatine in the same season of something, I mean, just
Ooh.
print the money.
Mint, yeah, yeah. Disney. Hello, you listening? But yeah, man, it doesn't even necessarily 100% have to be about Palpatine. It can just be things relating to Palpatine,
Yeah,
like tools or people being tools, that add to his character. I mean, that's why he's the overarching evil. Because even in the prequels, when he wasn't fully in power, like he wasn't the
right.
obvious figure, he was still very powerful behind the scenes, making sure that the clones didn't overtake this planet, or if they did, there's a
Yeah,
backup planet that would make them lose. There's the planet Jabim in the comic books. That's one of the
uh,
Republic losses, right? The Separatists overwhelmed them. So I mean, it's all controlled by Palpatine. The inhibitor chips,
yep,
everything like that. It's 4D chess. It's something that the viewer knows is going on, but the characters in the show don't. It's like a type, form of irony. Ironic, you know.
and
So,
also, yeah, right. That was really good. Also, like you could do. I just thought of this. Like you could have someone almost beyond him too. Like that could be the drama of a season, and internet people would like lose their mind. But if it's not like overtly like, oh, the general to him, if it was just
mhm.
like some other senator or something was like, so like something's off with this guy, and the season just ends with kind of like what you said, him walking into Palpatine's office and being it. Like, how
Yeah.
cold of an ending would that be? I mean, perfect. When you just see him like smile, that signature sinister smile, then
Mm-hmm.
that would be so good.
100%. Yeah. And even if we see like more Anakin shots of him being seduced by the
Yeah,
Dark Lord, like I like the idea of the time jump because you're able to play with more
Mhm.
characters in the prequels. Um, Especially with like all these shows coming out on Disney Plus, they're trying their best to fit shows in between pre-existing media,
Yeah, they are.
to make sure the characters line up with where their story is going to go.
Yeah,
That can be a very dangerous thing because you can create a new story that necessarily doesn't line up with something they're going to do. Um, so it's like, I mean, my mind's racing because of how awesome it is. But my name
yeah,
on Instagram is JT Lovecraft because it's a spin on H.P. Lovecraft, the father of the Cthulhu mythos genre and the idea of cosmic horror. Cosmic horror is basically the fear of unknown. His is a little bit more horrific with like teeth and eyeballs and these aliens
yeah,
and like godly beings and stuff like that. But just the fear of the unknown and the viewer not knowing what's going to happen in the show makes it more like makes it better. It's like the concept of villains not talking a lot makes a villain better because it doesn't reveal all their secrets, right? And I think you can tastefully show Palpatine in a Palpatine show with not showing too much to kind of take away from his character. I'm not
true.
saying fill the show with cameos by any means. I'm not saying that,
Yeah,
but I'm because if you do that, you're treading in more of the water of maybe the writing's not going to be too good. Um,
yeah,
but man, I believe they can definitely pull something off like that. They can make it tasteful, and they can make him not only cooler, uh, but not take away from other characters too. A lot of media nowadays, to make a character cool, they steal from other characters, and I don't
Mhm.
appreciate that. So
Star Wars has done that as well, for sure.
yeah, yeah. Cad Bane in Book of Boba Fett got the bad end
Yep,
of the stick, quite literally.
Luke Skywalker, in the sequels.
Skywalker, yeah. Or we could go down that
Now,
rabbit hole.
Now, I will say though, like, not again, you don't want like cameos for the sake of cameos. Like, you could go back, we won't rehash too much of the Acolyte, but like, I think that's a story of a really well done cameo and a not well done. It's, a couple of not well done ones. So you've got like Plagueis, I think they nailed that, right? Like, everyone, all the clues were there that Chimera the Stranger was on, like, involved in this.
Yeah,
And so, like, you get those clues. It's like, oh man, he's got some things that would kind of time to power or to plague us there, but I don't know, is it legit? And then at the end, they pay it off, right? Like, that is a good, in my opinion, that's a good little Easter egg, a good cameo.
yeah,
Now, Kiadi Mundi, Yoda at the end, I think that's just like for kicks and giggles. Like, why do you do that? And so, I think the Palpatine one, there's a fine line to walk there. Like, obviously, you have Plagueis in it. I think it would make sense for him to interact with some Jedi here and there, right? Just with the way the galactic politics are. But man, don't go too heavy there.
yeah. What you were saying about Kiadi Mundi and Yoda as well. I wouldn't have minded if they wouldn't have made it so obvious that they were a cameo. Like the
Yeah,
last shot of the last episode, it like pans down the back of Yoda's head. I'm like, okay, really? They're just
yeah.
showing Yoda to show Yoda. I would have
And it was like
preferred
old puppet Yoda too.
Yeah, I would have preferred if it was more in the sense of characters are acting in a scene and maybe Yoda just walks by in the background. Yeah, yeah, like
Yeah,
it's an unobvious cameo just so you can show that the character is alive and kicking because some
yeah,
Jedi, their species they live long. The Kiadi Moody age argument is such like a non-argument. People were like
right.
cracking it back like, well, actually, it's a dude. I forget the name of the species. I honestly don't even care. Like the actual canon was even like decanonized too because the species
Yes,
age was in like a tabletop RPG.
it wasn't even legitimate.
Yeah, it was like like we're really just talking about this. There's other, there's
Yeah,
bigger fish to fry, but besides the point. With cameos, I stand firm on that. If they're going to make it an obvious thing, give them a part that's going to be crucial to the plot, because otherwise it just seems like I guess a member berry. I guess that's what like one of the terms that people are using nowadays is member berry. I don't know. I'm still trying to learn the terminology. Shill, member berry, grift. Yeah, it's stuff I've never even
So
heard before.
so if you're a shill, I'll give you a quick rundown. If you like the Disney Star Wars, you're a shill. If you
Okay.
don't, you're a grifter.
which
And
which I've learned
there's no
shill
in between.
means, yeah, shill means you get paid to do the thing. So everybody's paid to do it. I don't understand. It seems like a loose term to just throw around for people that like it and don't like it, you
The
know.
secret about both of those things is both of them are wrong. But but I think if there's any kind of to tie all this together, it is no secret that Disney has missed on some Star Wars, right? The
Yeah.
new Lucasfilm has missed at times. George Lucas hid away the holiday special, right? Like it's not like everything was perfect there,
Yeah, yeah.
but there's been some big misses. And if you're wanting to like really do a lot of good for the misses, put something together like this. Like Rogue One is that type of thing. You'll be
Hmm.
hard pressed to find people that just have a lot of bad stuff to say about Rogue One. I think I met like one person that just absolutely hates it. And then like there's this is the story that could almost universally people be like, yeah, there's pretty good stuff there.
Yeah.
Like give the fan base a win, give the product a win. Like this would be the way to do
Yeah, and I've seen the news recently with a lot of different YouTubers and stuff just like breezing over. I see like the thumbnails and the, and stuff like
it.
titles, and they're talking about Ray getting maybe 6 movies or something like that. I'm like, whoa,
That's a lot.
6 movies. We're gonna give her the same amount of movies as the Lucas era of Star Wars. Okay, I'm all for it. I'll give any Star Wars a full watch through one time just to be genuine. And if I don't like it, I
Right.
don't
Yeah.
need to watch it again. Everybody's Star Wars is different. We shouldn't turn people
Mhm.
away from what they do like if they do like it. I mean, like you were saying, there were
100%.
some heavy hitting misses that Disney had, and I will agree. But there's also some really good things that if
Yep.
Disney hadn't taken over, we wouldn't have got those. So
Yep.
it's a catch-22. But like you said, I mean, we could have the niche show. I mean, a lot of people are wanting a fan cast of Sebastian Stan for Luke Skywalker. I'm
It's
all
so
for
good.
that. Mark
Yeah.
Hamill even gave his blessing. But I'm all for
Yep.
that because if you go into like the EU era with like comics, man, Luke versus the Yuzang Vong, the new Jedi Order, there's such a large playing
Yes.
field after Return of the Jedi. You can even
Yeah.
show, dude, my headcanon after Return of the Jedi is the Heir to the Empire trilogy as
Yep.
movies. Like that is like my number one thing probably besides like live action Clone Wars movie, right?
Right. Yeah.
There's so much playability, honestly. Yeah. Can't go wrong.
Yeah. I'm 2/3 of the way through that. It's
Yeah.
you want to talk about another miss? Figuring out a way, or not figuring out a way to make that work. That could be a miss, but I have hope that we'll see something along those lines one day. Similar maybe.
Probably,
But
yeah. I mean, even in the comic books too, like there's a lot of bad, but there's also a lot of good. The
yeah,
Republic comic book series is my favorite because it's like the grittiness of the Clone Wars, and they're coming. Those comic books came out at the time the prequels were coming out. So, do you remember the '03 Clone Wars banner? Like,
yeah,
it had like the crosshair inside of the O. So, like,
yep,
when the '03 Clone Wars came out, the comic books that were coming out for Republic had the Clone Wars like crosshair in it. Like
oh, that's good.
everything was completely evolving with the era. Like Attack of the Clones just came out, boom, Attack of the Clones video games, comic book, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
Everything's like perfectly in line. So like that's why it's my favorite. It's like everything evolved at the same time.
yeah,
But going back to the Palpatine
mm,
thing too with they have Dark Empire, and Dark Empire
yep,
has a lot of controversy, good and the bad. I mean, you have Luke, basically fallen Luke, right? Fallen Luke to the dark
yeah,
side almost. Or actually he did. uh
yeah,
but then you have the grievances with Palpatine being cloned. I mean, there's a reason it's in a comic book, right? It's not supposed to be in the movie. They made that very clear. Tom Feich, in one of the interviews, I think back in the day, he was like, "Yeah, do not take this as headcanon because this would ruin the redemption arc of Vader and stuff
yep,
like that." Parts I agree, parts I don't. Um, but some stuff should just be left in its own medium. some stories are not meant to be told. I'll reference Tales of the Empire. Did we really need to see Barriss become an Inquisitor? I think the running fan theory was that she did become one. I didn't think we needed a whole 3-episode animated arc that kind of went nowhere. Right? I
Nowhere.
don't think
It's disappointing.
that goes into like the cosmic horror kind of mindset. The fear of the unknown is like, we don't need some stories, right? It's better left untold, because for the viewer, it's more, I don't know, it's just better to speculate that way,
It's
because
fun, right?
you have more characters to play with that are not going to be like, okay, this has to line up with this or it's going to ruin my fan theory, right? I don't think
Yeah.
everything needs an answer.
Well, that's a little bit kind of like you threw back to. If you could know everything about it, wouldn't be much of a guy.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't want something that you can know absolutely everything about.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you've kind of mastered it. So, like, I think fiction. Now, that is a large gap between fiction, but I will say, like, you don't need to know everything, because then there's just so much out there that's like, okay, let your imagination run wild, right? Like, there is
Yeah.
so much fun to that. If there wasn't speculation, like, none of us would have YouTube channels or anything, because it's so fun just to
Yeah.
talk about what could be, right? Like, this is all we've been doing, is talking about what could be. Like, some things should be like left unknown, and just us to have fun.
Yeah, that's the double-edged sword that we as Star Wars fans struggle with. Is we want as much Star Wars as we can possibly get, new stories, all this stuff,
Yeah.
but it's shooting itself in the foot because it's trying to fuse everything together.
Yeah.
Another reason, The Force Unleashed is probably one of my favorite Star Wars video games, is because it doesn't have to fit into canon. Sure, the timeline works out, right? The very concept that maybe Starkiller sacrificing himself is the reason the rebellion kind of like formed those senators together is an amazing theory that totally works. It doesn't have to be canon, though, because just think of this guy's like ripping down Star Destroyers. It makes
He's
Luke
doing
look
so
like a
much.
wuss in the movies. Yeah,
Yep.
it's a catch-22. Like, we want to see as much Star Wars as we can get, but man,
Yep.
we don't have to see it all together, because we don't want what's precious of ours to get lost in the void of so many other things. There's that Liam Neeson quote in that one interview. He's like, it's getting kind of diluted. I don't.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like it. I like it and all. I watched the movie. Yeah, I agree with them, man. I agree.
Yeah. You can't have cake all of the meals of the day. If you just eat cake and ice cream, it's not good anymore, right?
We get
And
fat.
you're not super healthy, right? And I think that's probably a good spot to kind of land the plane. Is this a necessary series? Probably not. But as far as all the things that you could have, I think it would fly, right? Like, I think it would be something that doesn't mess too much one way or the other. And I do think if done right, it's one of those fandom uniting things, kind of like the Plagueis novel is. So I think it would be a lot of fun. So, audience, leave it in the comments. Would you be interested in this series or not? If you made it this far and you're still listening, let us know. Drop it in the comments.